Black crimes do matter, certainly more so than black lives, sadly, at least to demonstrators and protesters and anybody looking to make a quick buck from a political cause. Before I go any further, I'll just point to a recent article that we've had on the website called Macy Gray and the Twitter Mob by John Tangney. It's an article for premium subscribers, so if you've got bronze membership, you're able to read it, and if you've got a silver membership, you're able to listen to the audio track from our fantastic Jonathan Crow. So go check that out if you're interested. Let's get further into it. So Minneapolis, I believe, is the place where George Floyd died, was it not?
I believe so.
Yes. Well, there's been another event there as the Minneapolis police snipers fatally shot a man, Andrew Tekel Sundberg. And there has been...
Tekel? How's it pronounced?
I don't know. It's
Should we just call him by his full name in proper
Andrew
British way?
Sundberg.
I'm not going to call you by your silly
going to call him
name.
Mr. Sundberg, or
That's
at least
much better.
the late Mr. Sundberg, as it should be, because he got shot and he died. And there are some parts of the news when this first happened that were trying to avoid pointing out exactly what it was that he got shot for. But there has been some news developing in this, and I really think it does show the kind of brainlet attitude a lot of activists have, because they really don't care who it is that they're marching for, as if the evidence that we've already seen over the past few years wasn't clear enough of that. But anyway, two Minneapolis police snipers shot 20-year-old Andrew Tekel Sundberg, the late Mr. Sundberg, following a multi-hour standoff earlier this week on the city's south side. New documents filed on Friday show that these snipers were posted on the roof of a building across the street from the third-floor apartment where Sundberg was holed up. The BCA, the top law enforcement agency of the state, is investigating the deadly use of police force. It still remains unclear what exactly prompted the officers to shoot. And that, as far as I can tell from all the developments that have gone on since there, that is still the case, where we don't really know what it was that he did that prompted them to shoot beyond the initial incident that started off the whole police standoff in the first place. So it'll be interesting to find out what when the police release that information. According to the investigators, Sundberg fired multiple shots inside the Seward neighborhood apartment building on Wednesday night, and a neighbor, Arabella Yarborough, called 911 saying a stray bullet had gone through her wall.
That might be why they shot him.
Because
he had a gun
why.
and he was shooting indiscriminately through walls.
That could be why, but once again, they were in a standoff with him for 6 hours, so that's definitely why they showed up in the first place. The first loud bang that I heard, I didn't know it was a gunshot, she told the television reporters. Moments later, a second bullet tore through the kitchen wall and she grabbed her 2 young sons and hid in the bedroom where she called the police. Not long after, she ran to let officers into the building and told them to save her children. I thought, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it, she said. After police got Yarborough's sons out of the apartment, Sundberg isolated himself inside his unit and officers spent hours trying to negotiate with him. Around 4:30 a.m. on Thursday, the 2 snipers shot him, fatally wounding him, and he died at Hennepin Healthcare, which I assume is a hospital nearby there. According to the search warrants, the investigators recovered a pistol with an extended magazine and several bullet casings from Sundberg's apartment. Also recovered was a bullet fragment from the neighbouring apartment unit. So what she's saying about the bullets going through into her flat sounds pretty true to me. This is not the sort of person that I'm going to be shedding any tears over, sadly, because he was firing indiscriminately in an apartment building, and honestly, by the sounds of it, it's a miracle that nobody died as a result of him.
Yeah, that poor woman with her 2 kids. Those kids are probably traumatised. I imagine if I were a
certainly,
kid
yeah.
and someone was shooting through the walls of where I was living, I would be like scarred for life, just worried constantly that a stray bullet's going to hit you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, when you get out of something like that, you think to yourself, oh God, that could just literally happen at any point now. So what are you going to do? On Thursday night, his friends and family held a vigil to remember him outside the apartment where he died. In a statement, his family said Sundberg struggled with his mental health. While we have received very little information thus far, by all accounts, it sounds like our Tekel was suffering from a mental health crisis. We send our deepest sympathies to anyone in his building impacted by his crisis, and we thank the community members who have come forward in loving memory of Tekel, the family statement said. So they're playing it up like it was just a mental health crisis that led to him firing a gun randomly in an apartment building and endangering everybody around him, which is not a particularly justifiable position. And of course, we'll get into a little bit later, they have immediately started playing the race card on this, which is especially interesting given that he was their adopted son. I believe that the family, I know the father is white. I don't know about the mother, but they adopted him from Ethiopia, I think it was. I don't know if he was an orphan or anything, but he was an Ethiopian who was up for adoption. They brought him over, have raised him, and evidently, I think they were raising him alongside 8 other children as well. So they were obviously a very generous family. I'm not going to put any real shame on them for doing what they did. They were obviously trying to perform an act of charity by taking someone from an impoverished background and trying to raise him in America where he could be a bit more prosperous. But sadly, it seems that whatever demons were chasing this guy, mental health-wise, led to him doing this.
It's not really an excuse, though, is
No,
it?
of
If you're
course it
shooting
isn't.
off a gun.
Yeah, we don't know, other than any speculation that's been put forward so far, why he was firing the gun in the first place. It may have been a mental health crisis, like they're saying. It could have been something else. We do need to wait for some extra information before we can say exactly. I think the police are trying to release the body cam footage as quickly as possible, because there were loads of police officers on the scene with hundreds of hours of police cam footage.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if it wasn't all filmed.
Yeah, of course, it was all filmed, so we'll know exactly what it was that prompted the snipers after the family were removed out of the situation, what it was that prompted them to shoot him, which will be interesting, but it doesn't really justify what he did in the first place, of course. But yeah, they held the vigil for him, and I don't understand why exactly you would feel bad for this man. Once again, he was a man who could have very easily been a double child murderer if the bullet had just gone off in the wrong way, or at least manslaughter. And they also held a demonstration for him, where they say here, people gathered outside his apartment where he was shot and killed by the police. Demonstrators joined family members as they demanded more answers from law enforcement. Demanded more answers. He was shooting in an apartment building, could have killed people. They took care of that. They made him no longer a threat to the people around him. I think that's all the answers you want. Obviously, when the police cam footage comes out, we'll be able to see why it was that they chose to shoot him rather than get him into a position where they would be able to arrest him. But once again, this reeks to me of trying to justify what it was that he did, or at least sweep it under the rug and turn it into a police matter, because police shoot black man is, of course, one of the greatest ways to grab headlines and get yourself money.
The media is very slimy about this, in that they're well aware of the details of the situation, and quite often they conceal them. There was a shooting I covered with Callum not too long ago, where they only mentioned that the person who was shot in the back running from his vehicle was shooting at the police as he was driving away.
Yes, I think I mentioned this guy in passing and had actually managed to miss out by accident the fact that he'd been shooting at the police as well before they opened fire to him. So it is very interesting how they are always very selective with particular details to try and push a particular narrative. And Libs of TikTok managed to get hold of some footage of him that he posted on his old TikTok. And we'll just play this because we want, once again, just to show that this man, he may have had a mental health crisis, but it seems that he was somebody who was not particularly all there to begin with. Just play this to show his character.
I don't know how you hoes be doing it.
Is he wearing a shower cap?
Me personally, if a bitch came to me as a woman, I'm coming to her as a bullet.
What does that even mean?
I don't know what that means. All I know is that whatever that was a threat of shooting people, which, very interesting that he ended up almost shooting a woman and her children. And I will say, I don't want to sound harsh here, the man is dead, but he does sound legitimately retarded. Like, honestly, he did though. We can't deny it.
Well, to do what he did, you've got to be a little bit like that, don't you?
Yes, just a little bit. And if we move along as well, the family have been calling for the police footage to be released, as I've mentioned. And they mentioned something interesting here, which makes me believe that they are trying to, once again, spin the narrative a little bit here. Officers allegedly, according to the father, refused the requests of Tekle Sundberg's father, Mark Sundberg, to enter the building and speak with his son during the 6-hour police standoff. It's very, very interesting that they would say that. Obviously, enter the building during a standoff is probably not the best idea, because you're just offering yourself up as a hostage in that situation.
They don't know the mental state of the guy in there, and if they send someone in, well, potentially they're endangering more people. So I understand why they did it. It could have worked.
Perhaps, but there's a problem with that particular statement, because it's implying that they never let him speak to him at all. Whereas actually, if we go to the next one, there is footage of him over the PA with the police, trying to speak to Andrew and trying to calm him down and trying to get him to put the guns down, etc. So would you want to play this just so we can see a bit? There is some subtitles here as well because the audio is a little bit hard to make out.
This is your dad again.
Saying this is your dad.
I need you to talk to the negotiators.
Need you to talk to the negotiators.
They just want to talk to you right now, okay? Give them 30 seconds. That's all. Just to know what's going on. Not asking you to come on, just talk to the negotiators. They're gonna call.
Andrew Sunberg, resident of 904 21st Avenue South.
So this just seems to have been taken from live footage that people in the surrounding area were capturing as the incident was going on.
As the negotiators are trying to contact you. Please answer the phone. As the police department are trying to get in contact with you.
They did, yeah.
Andrew
It's very weird with an earpiece on.
the police department. We're outside of 904 21st Avenue South.
So yeah, I think that's all we need. The rest of it just seems to be the negotiator. Yeah, there's another subtitle there just saying, we need you to pick up the phone. So the father was given the opportunity to try and talk his son down. And, you know, fair play to him. I completely understand that this must be a tragic moment in their lives because their son not only is dead now, but also went out in such a horrible way that put other people in danger. That would really make you second guess yourself as a parent, especially an adoptive parent as well. You wonder where exactly you went wrong. But the problem is that trying to spin it and trying to make it sound like it's purely the police's fault is obviously taking responsibility off of yourselves as parents and also off of him as somebody with autonomy over his own actions.
Well, you certainly can't say that the police didn't try and talk him out of it. They didn't just go along and shoot him immediately.
They were there for 6 hours.
Exactly, yeah.
And there's been some other developments. Okay, John's just making some notes here, but it doesn't really matter. If we go to the next article, we can see as well that what they've been talking about is that Arabella Foss Yarborough, who is the mother of the children who were almost shot, has not been particularly happy with the fact that there were a load of BLM protesters and brainlet demonstrators outside of her apartment building, memorializing the person who almost killed her children.
Yeah, imagine going for a traumatic event and then a bunch of those idiots just turn up outside, like saying that they were wrongfully killed when the person who was killed almost shot your kids. I mean,
you would not be in the mood for it, would you?
And we definitely see that in the video, don't we?
Yeah, so supposedly the parents, Sundberg's parents were outside when she came and shouted at them. They said that they empathized with their neighbor. I mean, fat lot of good that's going to do, sadly. I wish I could wrap my arms around her and tell her I'm so sorry, Cynthia Sundberg said. I'm so sorry that she had to experience that. I'm so sorry for her pain. Tekel was an imperfect human, as we all are imperfect humans, and he did not deserve to be picked off like an animal from a rooftop, his mother said.
But
great consolation right there for the woman your son almost killed.
Yeah. All people have imperfections. They don't go around shooting indiscriminately.
No, I think that's less of a imperfection, more of just a complete defect. And we've got footage of that. If we want to go to the clip, we can hear Arabella expressing her frustration with these morons.
They're my idols because you guys are celebrating his life.
It was a terror. I'm sure it was a
This is
terror.
not okay.
That's so condescending to her.
Shut up. Just let it go. Grief in silence. This is not okay. This is not a George Floyd situation. George Floyd was unarmed. He was unarmed.
You're alive. Sorry.
This is not okay.
Dick.
My kids have to deal with this.
Tell they
and
really
probably
care
have a
about their
mental
fellow
illness
humans.
now
Oh, yeah.
Because they almost lost their life. There's bullet holes in my kitchen
How do you
because he
know?
sat in the f***ing hallway watching my move. I wish it never happened either. I don't have a place to call home. I can't sleep that night.
She's obviously going through a moment.
This is not okay.
You're obviously going for a moment, he said to her.
Obviously going through a moment.
This is not okay. Just go home. Go home. Because none of you guys knocked on that man's door to check his health.
Shut up. He comes to my house. Shut up, nigga. You're
No, you guys did not come. He did not. You guys did not come and visit that reaction's home.
guy looking at his shoes.
Hopefully ashamed.
That's only a person ashamed can do that.
You think it's okay to get my kid's in the car? My kid's in the car. My black kid is in the car. He tried to kill me in front of my kids. He tried to kill me in front of my kids. He tried to kill me in front.
Honestly, quite a disgusting display from those protesters there. I mean, we shouldn't really expect any different from protesters and demonstrators at this point. But the level of condescension right there. I hope everybody who attended that demonstration and argued against the woman who almost died feels ashamed and disgusted in themselves. Because honestly, you can tell the intentions of all of those people just condescendingly arguing against it. Oh, you're alive though. He almost shot me. Ah, but he didn't.
Well, they've already made up their mind, haven't they? They're not willing to entertain opposing ideas that maybe the guy deserved it.
Perhaps, especially if he almost killed them. But that doesn't enter their mind. And of course, we've had the conservative responses to a lot of this, like Drew Hernandez, who was a big, he was one of the people who testified on behalf of Kyle Rittenhouse during the trial at the end of last year, saying that her black kids' lives matter, don't matter to the woke mob. Black lives matter, don't give a damn about black on black crime. This is just yet another example of that. We've had some jokes from it where somebody was pointing out in the next one, protests erupted after the police shooting of Sundberg, a black man, after he fired mostly peaceful bullets into an apartment filled with children. And there was an interesting thing here as well, which was there was a GoFundMe for Tekel's funeral. And for a while after this, before this had got as much media attention and coverage as it has now, as if we can see from the images here, he was actually, his GoFundMe was actually in a better position than the one for Arabella was.
What?
Just scroll along to the last image there for us, John. So you can see here, hers, $2,200, help a single mother and gun violence survivor. Pretty reasonable thing to want to raise money for. $15,000 were raised on behalf of honouring Tekel and covering his funeral expenses. I can understand wanting to help the family be able to cover the funeral expenses. That's one thing. But honouring him from some woman, Leah Marie Adair, presumably no relation to the family, presumably probably just some kind of demonstrator, protester, activist who wants to make sure that everybody knows that she's a good person, raising all this money. But there is some good news that's come out of this. There is some justice. If we go to the next link, this is what the GoFundMe raising money for the mother looks like now. She's got almost $60,000 raised, well over the $10,000 goal, and this is all because of the outpouring of support that's come from people who actually looked into what happened and saw that this was not a situation in which it was just an unarmed black man being needlessly gunned down by the police. This was a situation where the man was putting people's lives in danger, and this woman deserves help from the community. So
that's probably enough for her to move out of that apartment and hopefully to live somewhere a bit safer. I
can only hope so. So to everybody who's actually put that money forward, thank you, because you are actually helping somebody who probably needs it right now, and you're helping to put her kids in a better situation than they would be otherwise. So there we go.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the Epoch series, this one on Ethelred the Unready. And if you want to follow what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.